Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, so today we are tackling a massive, incredibly common frustration. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You're watching a movie in English, maybe catching up on a show, and you understand pretty much every single word. But the second someone asks you a simple question in real life, you just completely freeze. It's wild, right? You know the vocabulary, you absolutely know the grammar. But the gap between understanding English and actually speaking it fluently, well, it feels like a massive canyon. So today's explainer is all about bridging that gap. We're going to unpack exactly why this happens, and far more importantly, I'm going to give you a clear, actionable plan to actually fix it.
Right. Let's dive into this by putting you right in the middle of that super stressful moment. Picture this. You're just standing there, and someone asks you a really simple question in English. You totally understand what they said. You even know exactly what you want to say back. But suddenly, your mind just goes completely blank. It's literally like someone just hit the delete key on all the English files in your brain.
And nothing comes out. Or, maybe just one agonizing word at a time slowly drips out. Look, take a breath right here, because I really want to pause for a second and just validate that frustration for you. It's real. You know the words, you know the grammar, you effortlessly breeze through YouTube, podcasts, and TV shows, but the words simply won't flow when it's your turn to speak.
All right, Section 1, the blank mind problem, or as it's often called, the silent struggle.
I want to assure you right off the bat here, if this happens to you, you are absolutely not bad at English. Seriously, no way. In fact, this disconnect is incredibly common. Just look at this comparison. On one side, we have what you flawlessly consume, right? The media, the shows, the stuff where you're basically an expert at understanding. But then on the other side, we have what happens when speaking. Silence, the single-word stutter, the dreaded blank mind. It's just a stark, crazy contrast between your super high level of comprehension and that temporary paralysis you get in a live conversation.
Moving on to Section 2, Passive versus Active Skills. Let's get into the neurological diagnoses.
So we really need to uncover the mechanical, neurological reasons behind why your brain betrays you like this. Let's look at a couple of everyday examples to make sense of it. Imagine you watch professional basketball every single day. You know every single rule, you can predict every play. But does that mean you can just step onto the court and play like a pro? Of course not. Or think about reading hundreds of recipes over 3 years, but never actually cooking a single meal. If you finally step into a kitchen, you're going to struggle big time. I really hope this gives you a bit of an aha moment. Knowing the rules of a game is just completely different from actually playing it.
Because here's the deal. There is a massive difference between receiving information and actively building it. Listening is what we call a passive skill. Your brain is literally just sitting back and recognizing the information as it comes in. Easy, right? But speaking, that is a highly active skill. Your brain is suddenly forced to actively create information in real time, entirely from scratch.
Let's break that down even further. Think about the immense pressure that speaking puts on you compared to listening. With listening, your brain just functions to recognize words, and it gets to do it in a pretty relaxed time frame. But with speaking, oh man, you have to simultaneously find the exact right words, build the sentence structure, mentally check all your grammar rules, and then physically move your mouth to pronounce it correctly. And you have to do all of that within a tiny window of just a few seconds. Speaking requires real-time creation under immense pressure. That is exactly why it feels overwhelmingly harder than just listening.
Which brings us to Section 3, 3 roadblocks to fluency and what is actually stopping you.
Now that we understand the mechanics behind this, we need to look at the specific bad habits causing this massive gap. And roadblock number 1 is the input imbalance. Look at this chart. 95% of your time is spent on input, listening to videos, reading articles, just soaking it in. And only a tiny 5% is spent on output, which is the actual speaking part. You might spend years heavily consuming English media, but your active speaking muscle, it just remains incredibly weak simply from a lack of use.
And here is roadblock number 2, the mental translation traffic jam. This one's a killer. Let's say someone asks what you did this weekend. Instead of just answering, your brain goes through this exhausting 4-step process. First, you think of the answer in your native language. Then, you translate it to English. Then, you run a quick grammar check. And finally, you speak. This shows exactly why you feel so slow. I mean, by the time you get to step 4, the conversation has already moved on. Fluent speakers don't translate like this. They connect their ideas directly to English words.
Roadblock number 3 is something people rarely want to admit, and that's fear. The fear of sounding stupid, the fear of using bad grammar, the fear of being judged. Perfection becomes the enemy of fluency. That hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? I really want to pause here and challenge that perfectionism. You stay silent because you want your English to be flawless. But think about toddlers for a second. They learn their very first language by making literally thousands of mistakes. Nobody expects perfection from a toddler, so they just keep speaking, and eventually, boom, they're fluent. You've got to stop waiting until you feel ready, because honestly, that day never comes.
All right, Section 4, your daily action plan. Here is the prescription to fix this.
Now that we've got our diagnosis and we know the roadblocks, let's aggressively pivot to an empowering, high-energy action plan that you can start using literally today. Tip number 1, you need to speak out loud every single day. Not next week, not when you finally find the perfect speaking partner. Today, just talk to yourself out loud in English for 5 minutes. Describe your room. Describe what you're doing right now. Remember, the goal is speaking, not perfection. Consistently building that active speaking muscle for 5 minutes a day is so much better than waiting around to do 1 hour next month.
And that builds directly into tip number 2, the shadowing technique. This is an absolute game changer. It's an incredibly powerful way to train your mouth and your brain to work together by mimicking native speakers. Here's how it works. You just take a short English clip, listen to one sentence, pause it, and then repeat it immediately. You are directly copying their rhythm, their speed, and their pronunciation. It is a fantastic way to build your confidence fast.
Finally, let's round out the plan with tip 3. You have to start thinking in English. Throughout your day, just naturally narrate your simple daily routine directly in English in your head. Like, I'm making coffee, I'm heading to work. Keep it to small sentences and really simple thoughts. Doing this completely bypasses that terrible translation traffic jam we talked about earlier. It trains your brain to skip the native language step, which makes your actual spoken English so much faster and a lot more natural.
So, to wrap up our explainer today, I want to pose this question directly to you. What is your absolute biggest speaking challenge right now? Is it that you're constantly translating in your head? Is it that nervous fear of making a mistake? Or is it simply just a lack of daily practice? Take a second, identify your specific roadblock, and drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And I want to leave you with this final crucial thought. Fluency doesn't come from a textbook. It comes from courage. The solution to your blank mind isn't learning more grammar rules. It's finally giving your current knowledge a voice. So,